Great. Well, welcome to another episode of Chuck Trautman Interviews the Experts on KCFT Radio, and my guest expert today is Mr. Rickert, who has a real estate empire here in Mesa, Arizona, and specifically today, though, we're going to talk about franchising a real estate brokerage, which is a fantastic opportunity for entrepreneurs out there. So, Rick, how did you get into real estate, and how did Look Inside Realty come about?
Well, one, thanks for having me, Chuck. It's great to be on your show and your program. Kind of the inception of it, I was in corporate America. I was with Inside Enterprises here for about 10 years from, I think it was 88 to 98. And as I was evolving out of corporate America and wanted to do my own thing and be entrepreneurial, I realized, real estate investing had an interest for me. And I thought, I'm gonna do some fix and flip. I had a little bit of experience of that in the past with my dad, owned a rental property, and so kind of jumping in and doing some of those repairs didn't really concern me. So I thought, I'm gonna investigate and go down this path and see what's possible. And kind of through that evolution, I found buying at public auction to be a great acquisition strategy for me. And I've been doing it for the last 16 years, and I'm very passionate about it.
Very cool. So how did you get into franchising brokerages, from buying a public auction for your own use to do fix and flips to helping other people get in that business? How did that come about?
Well, and I think you just hit on it. It was about helping other people. What I discovered when I got down to public auction was, my competition were wholesalers, and still are today. And so it's this group of people, anywhere from 5 to 25 people just hanging out on any given day on the courthouse steps. And that visual is duplicated across the United States in all major counties. So when I show up in Tucson, or I show up in Vegas, or I'm in LA, I show up at the county courthouse, and then it's like walking into a mirror of what was, in Phoenix. So but you hit it when you said, about helping people, because what I identified was new people showed up at auction almost on a daily basis, and sometimes multiple people, trying to figure this out. And as I had done at the beginning, and they're trying to figure out, how does it work? Where do you get a list? What's the competition? What's the lay of the land? Should I be down here? All of those types of questions. And what I observed from the early on, from really the onset, was that there was no help down there. The auctioneer had no interest in other than to cry their auctions and go home. And the competition is the competition, so that's self-explanatory. They were rude, and they would turn their back to people and discourage people. I mean, literally, I heard people saying, Chuck, you don't belong here. You just go back to whatever you're doing, and because you don't belong in this space. And as I saw enough of this, I went, there's opportunity here. This buying at auction process, while it's buying real estate, the dots don't connect like traditional real estate. You find an agent, you go look at a few properties, you write a contract, that has its very standard flow through, and then you close and you get your keys. This is different, and it was a world that after 16 years and 3,000 purchases at auction, I got it, and I figured it out. So, but that's ultimately what it comes down to, is helping people. So, kind of coming back around and answering your question about, well, why franchise it? It's the same problem across the country in every major county. A handful of people have it figured out, but this is an open public market that the public really doesn't ultimately have access to. And so it's franchised under the Look Inside Realty brokerage, but the buying arm at auction is inforeclosure.com. So that's kind of the distinction. The reason they're together is every department of real estate across the country says if you're buying at public auction on behalf of a third party, you must be licensed. So we packaged it in the form of a real estate brokerage.
So in a real estate environment, how many of the sales are traditional homeowners selling to another home buyer versus the investor side?
At public auction, it is, I would say it's 99%, if not higher, investors. That is a space for investors. All investors should know about it, and that's part of the franchising and our marketing effort to really alert the public, right? The public meaning the investor community, that there's inventory here available, and it's always available there, and you need to have access to it, and that's what we provide. That's ultimately what we
So your franchisees, though, around the country, they're selling to the investor, but they also have a traditional real estate business too.
Yes, the franchise, exactly. The franchise component is like any other franchise, and I think there's about 34, 36 franchises on the market today that anyone could buy. And predominantly it centers around traditional real estate. Well, this one does as well, but we know that the repeat buyers are investors. And so with the infoclosure.com and the mechanism, the software platform, and the training to get you down to public auction and be an effective force down there for investors, it lends so much to the repeat business for investors. But a lot of those investors on their fix and flip, they need a listing, so that kind of moves to your traditional side of the house, and that's going to go to, then the traditional community, if you will, out in the market. So it's a very powerful, way to do real estate from a brokerage standpoint, because it blends two very important components: traditional real estate and the investor community.
So it seems like you really have a unique competitive advantage for your franchisees, because they have everything the traditional franchise would offer, plus your InfoClosure to give them the tool they need to help investors.
Exactly. And another way to look at it is every real estate brokerage opens up and has MLS as their conduit to what's available on the market. Well, a Look Inside franchise has that as well, right, as every other real estate brokerage, but there's another database available, and that is what's going on at auction, and that's the real inventory. Lowest price point in the market, fastest acquisition time, that's the meat and potatoes database. So anybody with a Look Inside or is an affiliate of, they blend with two very powerful databases to do business. So it's kind of the, investors are looking for the savvy real estate professional to work with, and when you have multiple databases or multiple sources to get the product, because that's what all investors are looking for, is inventory. If you can be that, that's a distinct advantage in the market today.
In preparing for the interview, your vice president of franchise operations gave me a list of frequently asked questions that he gets all the time.
Sure.
And then he also gave me some questions that those people should have asked. So I'm going to run through those.
That sounds great.
So the first one, he says they always want to know the price. So what's a franchise cost?
Right. Our introductory price on the franchise is $15,000.
Okay, and when would someone pay that franchise fee if they should decide they wanted to move forward?
Well, there's in a sense, a paperwork process to buy a franchise, and there's a cooling off period, so there's a 14-day window in there as well. So it's about call it a 30-day period. So at the time they sign the FDD, the franchise disclosure document, and the agreement, that's when they would pay.
And I suppose you just don't let anybody be a franchise anyways by application, and they have to meet your standards as well.
Well, absolutely. Yes, they're going to go through our process. That application does have to be accepted, because we're looking for, working with investors is a different group, and they have high expectations. So, when we want to make sure it's a real good fit, because what we find is traditional real estate professionals don't get it. There's a disconnect in the thinking and methodology, just because they've been trained in that way for years and years and years. So it's getting somebody with the investor mindset. So absolutely, there is an approval process.
So if I were to become a Look Inside franchisee, there's many income streams that I'm going to capture. Can you tell us what some of those might be?
Well, absolutely. And Look Inside, the first and foremost is really that activity which happens down at public auction. So our whole focus and all of our training, not all of our training, a big portion of the training centers around buying a public auction, because it's the fastest way to drive fee income or commission income, by connecting with people who are interested in the product down at public auction. And that's where the system and the software platform makes it really easy. So it comes back to is, are you able to create relationships with investors? And I'll tell you, the best place to find investors is being physically down at your space of public auction. I literally built the business off of that. And that's exciting to me, because the right person, just connecting with people, and again, that's part of the training process, is to know when and how to connect with investors. And when you treat them right and give them what they're looking for, they're with you for life.
Now, if you're also an investor yourself, then you can use this inside knowledge, so to speak, to profit that way too?
To buy product yourself?
Yes.
I started as a fix and flip guy, and I still buy today. I actually, in the last 30 days, I bought 3 properties. So what part of it is, one, I like the profit. So there's, let's just get that on the table. And then second is, one, I like to stay connected to what we do and what we teach. Yes, I've done it for 16 years, and yes, I've probably got, give or take about 200 fix and flips under my belt, and I've got a handful of longer term product that I keep, like fourplexes, which make great long term, portfolio, additions as well. But really it comes down to, being in the game, but the answer is absolutely the owners of the franchise and the participants can invest as well.
So you said you just purchased 3 for yourself in the last 30 days, but
Right.
we're talking about profit. What kind of profit do you expect to make in a perfect world on these 3 that you purchased?
I expect in the market today, I expect about, because these are what I define as a sweep, so I don't know how far you want to get into it, but there's more profit in the older properties that are kind of mid-70s to late 90s. But I take the sweeps, the newer stuff, 10 years old and newer, where I just get in, I throw some carpet, throw some paint, I'm done, and put them on the market. I'm looking for about a 10% return on my money, turning in about 120 days. So in theory, I'm getting 3 turns on my money in a year, about a 30% return on my money in a year, if I stay with the sweeps in that process.
Very nice.
Again, if you got a little bit more time, you can go with the stuff that takes a little bit more work and a little bit more risk, but the profit's higher. Where you're going to make probably a 15 to 20% return on your money, and of course, do that 3 times a year. You can do the math. It's pretty straightforward. That's how I look at it.
So another thing prospective franchisees ask is that what's the ongoing royalty if I become a franchise? What am I going to pay for it?
Absolutely. Like every other real estate brokerage, we charge 6%. I mean, that's kind of the industry standard. We have a minimum $1,000 a month royalty, or 6%, whichever's greater. Whichever's greher, right.
How much capital does a new franchisee need to get his business up and running in addition to the franchise fee?
That's a great question. Depending on the size of the county and where you're at, and whether or not your Department of Real Estate allows it, you can literally start this in your home, and so your overhead can be pretty low. But I would say, to be safe, you're probably talking $30,000 to $50,000 is a good cushion. Now I know that I was just talking to a guy a week ago, and his Keller Williams. I don't remember what he said he paid for the Keller Williams franchise, but they made sure he had $300,000 liquid to keep his business alive. And again, appropriate as they deem that to be, I'm about, let's get in, let's make it work, let's make the profit. So we're going to show you how to make money immediately in this business. Now, there's no guarantee on it. If the nature of who you are and working with investors doesn't work, you're probably not going to do very well. But the people who really get and understand how to work with investors, again, not everybody does, they're going to be really successful because they just know how to serve that community and then just take all the ancillary business that goes along with it.
So looking on your website, I was impressed that you have a big SBA logo up there.
Sure.
What did you do? You got approved?
We got approved by SBA, so the franchise is approved for funding. So any individual who didn't have the cash up front for the purchase can go to SBA, go through their application process, and potentially eligible for a loan. I don't make the decision on the loan, SBA would. But we were very excited when we got the approval, and I think we got that about 30 days ago. So we're very happy and proud that we were able to attain that.
Well, it's certainly a statement of credibility for you. That's for sure.
Thank you.
And how about do you offer any financing to get someone into a franchise if they need a gap between starting in the SBA, for instance?
We do. We actually have. We are a mortgage broker as well. I own a mortgage brokerage, so we have a funding component through Titan Capital Holdings. And again, it's an application process with an approval, but probably not as stringent as SBA. So there's an alternative option in there as well.
So does a person need to be a seasoned real estate broker to get into a franchise? What kind of experience does a person need?
That's a great question, and I think our ideal candidate is somebody who is in the real estate industry already, but that doesn't necessarily have to be. I mean, there are people who are up and coming real estate investors, experienced real estate investors, where they may just want to shift. They might be getting bored with doing fix and flipper or whatever they're doing, or maybe they're a great fix and flipper, but they're kind of working for somebody else, where they want to branch out and do it on their own. This gives structure and it gives continuity to really lend to being a great fix and flipper, because again, it's about getting the inventory, and in my opinion, there's no better place to get it than at public auction.
So do you have to be a broker yourself then, or not, to have a franchise?
Well, you don't have to be in all states. Some states require that the owner of the broker is also the designated broker. In Arizona, where I own Look Inside Realty here, I'm not the designated broker. I'm an associate broker, but we have an individual who is the designated broker to cross T's and dot all the I's contractually, be the responsible party. I prefer not to be because it just, I don't have the time to go into contracts at that level and would prefer not to. So the answer is typically not. The owner can be a participating member, and you can just bring a designated broker in to do what they do. Because, again, the individual who buys this, if you're going to do it and do it right, you're going to spend your time working on the relationship with investors to keep them engaged, because that's where your money comes from. If you become the designated broker and you're, I don't want to say trapped to crossing T's and dotting I's on contracts, which is so important in that business, you're not going to be spending as much time working with investors and clients. And so you have to kind of make that decision yourself. I chose to have a designated broker do all the paperwork, let me do the relationship building and marketing and being the entrepreneur that I am, rather than kind of being trapped. I say trapped to the contracts and the paperwork, because that's the way I see it. I don't want to do that. I want to be out in the element of investing, if you will, and working with investors rather than paperwork.
Sure, you can do more deals but not being behind the desk reading the legalese.
That's what it comes down to.
Does a person have to work in the business, or can they purchase one and hire people to work the business?
In the franchise disclosure document, it states that we want you to be a participant in the business. Once you get it up and running, we're open to a conversation if you feel comfortable with your team and you've put some good people in place, and we've participated with training them. I could see over a period of time, a true entrepreneur, because a true entrepreneur doesn't want to run a business. They like to start businesses and know that they're going. So.
Right, and I also think many of my listeners, may want to help a son or daughter get started, which they could be active in the business and help them get started.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're dead on, and I see it the same way too, because we, sometimes it's good to work a business, and sometimes it's good to oversee a business.
I know this requires a crystal ball, but Joe said one of the big questions people want to know right off is, how much money can I expect to make if I have a franchise?
A loaded question. It's really a good question, Chuck. There's a couple dynamics or a couple variables in there. One is the population of the county that you're in, okay, which then lends directly to the volume at public auction. So here's the interesting dynamic. The bigger the county, like Maricopa County, Arizona, one of the 4-5 largest counties across the United States, has a pretty big volume going through it. On any given day, there's 200 to 300 auctions that are cried on any given day, amazing, Monday through Friday. But there's a lot of competition. Okay. On the other hand, there's a smaller county where I come from, Appleton, Wisconsin, is in Outagamie County, Wisconsin. Now, Outagamie County has about 2 to 3 sales that get cried per day, so call it 10 to 15 a week. Okay. And I had a niece that lived with me out here for several years, and she worked in my business and got to know it, and then she got married and had family and decided to move back home to Wisconsin. I haven't been so bold as to do that yet. But when she went back, the reason I bring it up, when she went back, I had her go down to public auction for 3 weeks. I said, go down every day and just tell me what's happening. And she said, 1, nobody's here. 2, there's properties going back to the banks with really low opening bids. There's $40,000, $45,000 opening bids on homes that are easily worth $95,000 to $100,000. Tremendous spread, and they're just going right back to the bank. And she said, "There's opportunity here." So, and I believed it to be true anyway. I just wanted to know that that was actually true. And so it's really kind of understanding the market. So it's great to be in a big market because of the tremendous volume, but it's also a competitive edge when you're in a small county where there's bigger margins and very little competition. So it's kind of the what do you want and where do you want it. But really your question is, how much money can I expect to make? Well, the true answer is how much effort are you going to put into it? Initially, of course, you got to put a lot of energy into it to develop that base of investors who want to buy. It's a two-pronged approach. You want to work with investors directly where you can find them, and the other one is work with real estate professionals for their investor clients and showing them that there's a whole new avenue to buy. You know, I hate to give the numbers initially, but I think in the first 30 days, if you don't do 1 or 2 auction purchases, I'd be really surprised. That just by showing up down at auction and connecting with people and joining a few local real estate, networking groups and, meetups, if you will, I can't imagine you're not going to pick up a couple investors there, because All you have to do is say, are you open to inventory that I have access to? And the answer from any investor is going to be, yes, I'm open to looking at it. And that's where you're taking this very powerful database and going, look what's coming up tomorrow. Now, the dynamic is a little different too. It's where MLS is kind of like, hey, let's see what's in there. Let's go out and take a look at it. There's a 30-day close of escrow. Auction, I've always played the auction space. I look at it today for what's going to auction tomorrow, today for tomorrow, today for tomorrow. So I never look 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 days out, and I never look a month out unless I'm looking for maybe an apartment, a big apartment complex. So I want to do more due diligence. But the reason I do a today for tomorrow approach is because of the opening bids. I get opening bids kind of the day before, the morning of, and you have to make a decision pretty quick. And so when you can get investors into that groove, and it's not difficult, but it's getting them to understand that buying process, that's when they're going to go, I get it, let's do it, let's move fast, and let's make some things happen. So again, coming back to it, I just don't see where it's out of the realm of buying, a property or two in your first 30 days. And from there, again, it really comes down to how big is your investor base, how hard are you willing to work at connecting with those individuals?
Well, it's such a horrible question to ask, and I only ask it because your potential people do ask that, but then you have no idea if they're going to participate themselves as investors or do more on the traditional side or if they have any ambition or not. I mean, you don't know.
If they don't have ambition, I can pretty much tell you the numbers will be low.
So the only reason that question was shown out there is that people ask you that, because it's up to, like anything else entrepreneurial, you're going to get out of it what you put into it.
No question. But again, I say, even if you're not a good salesperson, you show up down at auction and you meet people. I mean, it's hard. When you tell somebody what you do, they're going to go, "Could you do that for me?" I mean, it's just it almost falls right in your lap. So that's what I'm saying. It's not rocket science. It's not recreating a wheel of any sort. It's just going down there and being of service to people who need it.
So some should have asked questions that I was surprised at is that. There was not a lot of questions asked about training, and there should be. So what do you do about training and ongoing support?
I built my company off of training. When I would meet people down at auction or wherever, I used to do an every Wednesday night session, like at 6 p.m. and for 2 hours, and I would just present on something related to what we do. And I think training is so critically important in any part of real estate, but especially in the auction space, because there are a few things that aren't totally clear or non-traditional, I should say. And it was always my goal, one, because when people understand it, they're more willing to play. And so training for a franchisee to their client base is critical, but so is my training to any franchisee that comes in to invest in this, in this offering. So we have training set up. It's a week training initially, and then there's a lot of ongoing training. Everything we do, because of modern technology, of course, we're in our studio today, which I appreciate you coming over. We can produce anything and then have it available at your fingertips. So it's not like they always have to fly into Phoenix, once a month to get a little bit more information. Everything is online. Everything's at the fingertips. But the first week we want them here. We want them to understand who we are, what the culture of the company is, get down to our public auction where there is a lot of volume, see our bidding practice, get connected to it, how to engage with potential clients and that kind of thing. That's really priceless, training to really understand how to get in and make this business work.
So in coming here today, you've got a large office space here, and you have many, many people employed in helping run this business. So ongoing support for a franchisee, they have different people within your organization who are experts they can talk to on whatever their question may be? Absolutely.
And we've done something unique too in this franchise. I mean, we've done a few things to help take some of the expense, the initial expense, because I've started many businesses over the years. When I left corporate America, I don't want to say start many businesses as much as I've opened new offices. So you go in and you've got to get phone systems and copiers and chairs and all this kind of stuff. We've done a lot to try to minimize some of that expense. And so one of the things we've done, because I know the expense of a phone system, and so as buying into this, you're actually getting a phone system. You're going to be on our platform. You're also going to be on our network, if you will. So so from a computer standpoint, you can literally run it off of a notebook, and you are going to get one of our phones as part of it's one of the things you get. And so you can always add one for an additional expense, but they're very powerful phones with an extension, we're here in Phoenix. If somebody in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, we can actually just tune in, hit an extension number, and talk to them. So with respect to the phone system, it's we've taken that and then the network capabilities, emails, having access to all of that is part of the system. So it's not an extra expense that you have to go out, website template and those kind of things. Of course, you'll provide your own content, but the template itself and the hosting of it, all of that is included, because you don't want to start a business, buy into a business, and then have to go, oh, now I got to find a web developer and all this stuff. So we know, some of the things that slow a process down, and we wanted to make that a little bit smoother on entry.
I mean, that is really the power of franchising, having so many of those things done for you so you can concentrate on getting your business up and running. Another question that we thought they should have asked, and that would be the availability of purchasing more than one territory. Is that a possibility for someone to do?
It is. We do have area development available, so if somebody wanted that, but at the same time, too, if somebody, here we have Maricopa County and Pinal County are very close, where somebody, in which Pinal is a much smaller county, an individual could buy both territories and or buy the franchise for both and have the exclusivity of the territories.
I'm originally from Portland, and there's the tri-county area in Portland, where Portland's made up of 3 counties, and so
Right.
I would think that would be something that someone should ask, because there'll be many cities around the country that have that.
Right.
So you said this earlier, but then it was on the should have asked questions again. I mean, how long does it take from the time that they're approved to the time they're actually ready to open? I mean, you said about 30 days from approval time, and then what's the lag time after approval till they can actually open their doors?
I would say that's still probably about 30 days, because they still have to get set up with the department. I mean, if they're licensed in real estate and they're just moving into creating their own brokerage, my guess is there's probably a 30 to 40-day window there to get all the logistics of that set up and going. Now, if they're not licensed in real estate, they either have to hire a designated broker to create the legitimate component of that to start the business, or they got to go through their licensing process, and you can't go to school and become a broker right off. You have to go to school and become a agent, and then, like in Arizona, I think it's either 3 or 5 years as an agent, and then you're eligible to take tests and go through the process of being a broker. So something to understand there is you may love this, but you may have to hire a designated broker to bring that all together. But once you have that in place, probably a 30 to 40-day window.
So you could be, from the time you decided that, hey, I want to do this, going through the approvals and actually having your doors open could be roughly 60 days.
I would think so, yeah.
That's very reasonable. Another question that they should have asked is, how many staff members can they bring to training? I mean, if they're going to need somebody perhaps working with them, is that an option to bring someone else?
Absolutely. The training includes 2 people.
Okay.
But if somebody really wanted more, like let's say a family decided to do this, and there's a married couple with 2 adult children or 2 up and comers, we can work that out. So it's not. But we just wanted to make sure they knew it was the individual who bought it and 1 other person. But if you've got more, not an issue. Just let us know, and we'd love to accommodate and get everybody trained.
So how do they start the process? What's the first move?
Really it's just contacting us at Look Inside Franchise. That's the website. And go to the website, click Get Started, and fill out the information. And there's an 800 number there. You can call that, or once you fill out the information, we'll be giving you a call. And really that's the starting process. Get a copy of the FDD, read it. Let's have some Q&A about it, go through an interview. You should interview us. I mean, they should absolutely know who we are, and we want to know who you are as well.
I'm sure they can Google you and find out anything they would need to know reputationally about you. So again, it's www.lookinsidefranchise.com.
That is correct.
I'd like to shift a little bit from those questions to talk about InfoClosure, because you talked about that as being such an integral part of this business, and I want them to understand the power of what you offer.
Sure. Well, it's InfoClosure.com is kind of it's the software platform component of my last 16 years in business. What I realized day one was I either had to purchase data or scrounge up data to figure out what's going to auction, and I spent a tremendous amount of time in any given day to figure out what's going to go at auction tomorrow and if it's worth buying. Then when I figured out if it's worth buying, then I got to do my due diligence to figure out what's the market value, what are the repairs, and then craft a maximum bid amount that I would bid on it with. So that's really where the software comes in. The software is designed to put information at your fingertips to make a decision on the good buys for tomorrow within a matter of minutes, even less. From logging in to getting to the list, if you will, it takes seconds, and that's the power of it. No longer do you have to spend hours to go, well, what is going tomorrow, and where is it? And, and trying to piece together whether it's a good deal or not. So it's software kind of built by me for me, but of course, it's also about sharing. It's about going, I can't buy everything in the market. It would be ridiculous to think so. And it's about sharing a platform on inventory that is so important to this market.
So is that included if they buy a franchise, or is that an additional charge?
No, the InfoClosure platform, that is included. And to me, that's kind of the core, because again, investor clients are going to be really interested in that, including the MLS platform. But this is where they can look at property today and buy it tomorrow. And you can't do that anywhere else. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. I think that's great, because that's a heck of an added value. And I was going to say, I've heard people grumble who tried to do this at the courthouse thing on their own about something they wanted, and they got there and it was already pulled from the market. So you have any tricks and tips for the people about that?
Well, the first tip is to be patient. So, because no place can I look at property and buy it quicker in the market than a public auction. But here's where people get disgruntled with the process. They identify one property, and they're going after that property, and they get down to public auction, and they get up to the courthouse steps, and they think they're ready to bid on it, and it postpones at the last minute. I mean, they're literally crushed.
That's the frustration I felt from people, yes.
Yeah, the frustration, so immediately like they're crushed. And of course, us who are out there, I never look at a property. I'm never attached to any single property, but that's where most of your feedback and most of the frustration comes from, is somebody went, oh, a house where I live 2 doors down, I know the house, we want to buy that one, and then they're chasing a house. That's not how, that's not, it's not an investor mindset, and it's really not the way to play in this space. The way to play in this space is go, what's coming up tomorrow with an opening bid, what has spread in it, let me do the analysis on those, and buy. And if I'm looking at 5 properties and 3 of them postpone, I bid on one, I get outbid, and I bid on the last one, and I win it. That's the nature of this business. It's not chasing an individual property, because an individual property you're emotionally attached to, worst possible thing you could do in this space.
So your franchisees get this training knowledge from you so they can work with the investors, and they're not going to be worried about that kind of one-off type of investor.
Exactly, because here's the other thing that the franchise and the nature of this buying at auction does is when you're working through a franchisee, whether it's here in Phoenix, Las Vegas, Tucson, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, whatever, it comes down to they have a bidder at auction. The bidding process is in place. So as an investor, all you have to do is go into the database, identify what you want to bid on, let them know how high you want to go. They'll do some due diligence, checking lien position and taxes and arrears to make sure you're okay with it, and execute the bid. And during the bid execution, you're going to be on the phone with them. So as an investor, the investor can go about their life, invest in real estate when the sale comes up. They don't have to drive down to public auction. They don't have to park. They don't have to walk up. They don't have to stand in the heat, wait, be disappointed on a postponement. When it comes up for sale, the person, right, the franchisee, has an individual at auction, makes the call to the investor. They do virtual bidding, if you will. Investor wins it. Great. If they don't win it, they celebrate that too, because you don't want it at too high of a price. Yeah. So I teach people, celebrate the don't wins as much as you celebrate the wins.
Come back tomorrow.
Come back tomorrow and do it over and again. And that's what's exciting to me, is the ability to play every day and any day that you want. And the most successful people in this space are the ones who do it every day. The people who kind of jump in for a day, oh, I didn't buy anything, there's nothing going on down at auction. You can't buy down there. I get that that's your experience in this space. It's not mine. I look at it every day, and I teach people to look at it every day. It's a commitment, and it requires patience. So when you say, what are the tips and the tricks, that's really it. It's committing to a space and knowing how to work it. I mean, MLS, for instance, in most cases, the inventory is so low on MLS that you have to look at MLS every single day and be first. So as soon as it hits the market, your buyer has to be aware. You've got to get them in a position. I mean, you literally have to send offers over before you see the property if you really want it. So there's a dynamic working in the MLS database that a lot of people are like, well, that's crazy, I'm not doing that. Well, right, you're not our best candidate either. So, it's the people who go, no, I know how to work an InfoClosure database to buy a public auction. I know how to work MLS effectively. If my client needs inventory, I'm going to go get it for them. I'm going to identify what they want. I'm going to pick it out for them. I'm going to call them, and we're going to play in this space, and we're all going to make a lot of money. And that's really what it comes down to is take the inventory, let the investors make a win. You get paid a fee or a commission for your service, and keep on doing it. Investors love it. The more experienced the investor, the more they get it, and that's what's exciting.
Rick, I have two more questions for you today.
Sure.
The first would be is if I have investors out here listening who aren't candidates for a franchise but love the sounds of InfoClosure.com, is that available to them?
It is. We also have an affiliate program available. We have it in two ways. One, you can be an InfoClosure affiliate and be connected to the national network, which is really exciting. But we also have what we call a white label affiliate, which if you wanted to brand that in your own name, you could do that as well. And so, and it'll be completely separate from what we do. So it's more like a subscription base. So we'd love people who are interested in that to call. Now, if you take an affiliate, you still want to make sure you comply with all the laws in your area. One of the benefits of the affiliate is, we get people who are great candidates from this, but they're having great success at Remax or Keller Williams or wherever they hang their license, and they don't really want to leave that, and I get it. The affiliate also allows them, the brokerage, to take on the affiliation and either white label it or be an InfoClosure affiliate, their choice, and do the same thing and open it up into their brokerage and have success that way. So, you could go with a full service brokerage and do your own thing, or if you're already associated with a brokerage or you are a broker owner, you could buy an InfoClosure, affiliation package and not have to change anything about their brokerage as well. So that's really exciting. We just went through the evolution of that in the last month. So
I have it right, and the listeners have it right. So there's two ways they could get InfoClosure besides having a brokerage. One's an investor could get InfoClosure to use for his own investor needs.
Correct.
And two is a Keller Williams or Remax investor or brokerage could white label InfoClosure to add the investor business to their retail real estate business.
That is correct.
And how would they contact you for those opportunities?
Again, they can go through the website, www.lookinsidefranchise.com, call the 800 number, whether it's for a full-service real estate brokerage or one of our affiliate programs. They can contact us through there. That's the best way.
Perfect. And then your other business, one of your other many businesses,
sure.
is your Titan business. And we have investors out there, both maybe who would want to invest for a high rate of return or would want to borrow from you for their fix and flips. So do you want to take just a minute and...
Absolutely. Great question, Chuck. And wherever we open affiliates and brokerages, real estate brokerages, we always open a Titan Capital Holdings in that state. And Titan Capital Holdings is a mortgage broker. Our specialty is hard money. And just so people understand, hard money, they're bridge loans. They're short-term, high interest rate, easy to get into loans for fix and flip. And now you can do them for your longer-term product too, but you're like a fourplex you're going to hold for years, right, 10 years or more. You're not going to want to keep that in hard money. But to make the buy at auction, right, Titan is there with their hard money product to help you with the buy. If you're keeping it long-term, and we have other products. We have 2 to 4 year products. We've got everything, including 30-year product like FHA and VA, the whole gamut. But people most know us for our hard money and be able to get into the deal quick. We can fund a loan same day. That's the strength of Titan Capital Holdings. We know what it takes to buy at auction. We know the value of when a deal shows up in front of you and you need a loan, you got to do it because you're going to lose it the next day. That's what we specialize in. So again, high interest rate, but really easy, not hard money loans, they're really easy money loans from that standpoint. So that hard money and investing go hand in hand, and going out to the real estate community, not all real estate professionals really understand it, and we do a lot to make sure they really fully understand hard money and the benefits, because if it's a matter of losing a deal or keeping a deal, you might as well pay the higher interest rate loan to get in. And we charge per diem interest, so it's per day. If you use it for 20 days or 30 days or 5 days, that's all the interest you're paying, and then move it out to some other loan. Whether it's a product through Titan or whether you do it on your own, whatever the case might be, it doesn't matter. But it is. It's exciting. because they're really sister companies. Buying at auction and the hard money that supports the actual activity of buying at auction makes for a great combination.
You know, my show is for entrepreneurs and by entrepreneurs, and I think that you've shown people many opportunities here. They can get in business for themselves with a Look Inside franchise. If they're already in business for themselves in another real estate company, they can buy into the InfoClosure affiliate program, or an investor can you're kind of full service. An investor can borrow money for you, or he can invest money in Titan Capital for a high rate of return. So
that's true too.
You have got it.
We're always raising money such that we can lend it out.
Exactly.
So, absolutely.
Rick, you've been a great guest. This episode of Chuck Trautman Interviews the Experts on KCFT Radio has been with Rick Rickert, a true real estate expert and franchise expert. So I want to thank my listeners for tuning in today. And Rick, I want to thank you very much for the interview.
Very good. Thank you, Chuck.